Happy Friday, everybody. Friday starts the weekend, and we are here to make your weekend a profitable one through the props betting market. I am Andy Lang from WagerTalk.com, being joined as always by my fellow prop master, Andrew McGinnis from WagerTalk. Great show. We're going to be breaking down every game. So while we get started, go ahead and hit that like button for us. And don't forget to leave a comment and tell us your favorite bet for the weekend. We cover a lot of games, but we definitely don't hit on all of them. And we're going to start off the show with something different. And it's a viewer question that I think we need to spend just a few minutes talking about. So if we could pull up that graphic, it's a really good question. And this speaks to volume, how many bets myself and Andrew have. So the question comes from Jeffrey. Thank you for commenting. All these props, do you put your money on all the props you were pointing out and say that you like? Great question. So the answer is no, we're not betting every single one of these props that we talk about on the show. And you should not have this many bets. Our official bets are on a WagerTalk. Those are the ones that I absolutely bet with my own money. We cover all of our bets on the video series, The Road to Millions, which is on this YouTube channel. But myself and Andrew, one of the things that we have in common is we're very low volume. So I don't think it would be very wise to have this many bets in play. For myself, here's what I hope the audience gets out of every single one of these game breakdowns. I hope you hear a few stats that you didn't know. I hope you hear a couple of bets that maybe were off your radar. And I hope that you hear a few things that point you in the right direction, or maybe you hear something that keeps you off of a pick that might have ended up being a losing pick. And maybe you walk away with one or two bets that kind of speak to you, and maybe you want to tail us on. But it would be irresponsible for us to say, no, play every single bet that we do. Breaking down every game is a great way to learn about teams that you don't really follow and teams that we don't normally follow unless we were doing the show. So it's a great question. It speaks to volume, and I can't emphasize enough, do not overexpose yourself with too many bets in the NFL. So Andrew, what are your thoughts on this? It's a great question from Jeffrey about how many bets that we're betting with our own money.
It really is a great question. We appreciate all the comments we get here on Prop It Up. And look, I think that you summed it up perfectly, Andy, as far as just the fact that you want to take something out of every single game, but it does not mean that it has to make your client card. And quite honestly, a lot of times I've found stuff that I've talked about when the games we've talked about which games we're going to put either myself or Andy's discussing. And I'm like, you know what? You've talked about this guy 2 or 3 weeks in a row. It's time to add him to the client card. And the thing is, when we're talking about this many games every single week in the NFL, you're really learning about different teams or players that you might not have even looked at before. And the more you can trust a player or a certain prop to the under or to the over, that's when it slides into my client card. I don't like to have that many plays. And the thing I will say to people, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, Andy, is if you're picking high volume or you're betting low volume, I think whichever it is, you have to stick with it. Obviously, you don't want to go high volume if you don't love a slate. But for me, I'm a low volume guy. So even if I say, 10 bets today on Prop It Up on this show, I'm not going to say, well, just because I said 10, I'm betting all of them. I'm probably going to pick 3 of my favorite, and those will be the ones that I'm betting, because that's how I want to isolate. I think as handicappers, that's really more of our job sometimes than even actually handicapping the games, is picking which ones we like the most. What are your thoughts on that, Andy? I tell people that all the time, that as handicappers, part of our job is to get the spaghetti strainer, strain through all the ones we like and figure out which ones we like the most. And that's what I've loved on Prop It Up, talking about so many plays and then saying, you know what? I already had 2 plays for clients, but there's one I mentioned on Prop It Up that I think deserves to make the client card. What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's in the props market. I mean, think of how many props are going to be out for the NFL this weekend. Hundreds. So it would be easy to have 40 plays that you like, of course. So yeah, it gets tough because, it drives you nuts when you lay off of a winner, but we always say we would rather lay off a winner than give out a loser. So, I love researching the props, but it does get difficult because you're going through hundreds of them, and then I need to find one for a 5% play. Like out of
Yeah.
all these hundreds of props, I need to find my one favorite that I like for 5% play. But that's the job. And you keep poking holes in bets. You can eliminate bets. You look at the injury report. You look at the weather. You just look at all of the things that go into one single prop. And I always say this. You only need one play to turn a profit. I don't like seeing a lot of people firing away as many bets as they do because it just leaves yourself open for that one bad weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one weekend where you go 1-10, it just wipes out a big chunk of your bankroll. I'm perfectly fine with going 2-1 every weekend in the NFL. I'm perfectly
Right.
fine with going 1-0 in college football and 1-0 in UFC and calling it a week. Great. I'll take my
I
6
like it.
units. Yeah, I'll take my 6 units and be done with the week. So it's a great question from Jeffrey. And I really, really just want to emphasize be careful with the volume, calm down on the amount of bets. There's so much college football, and there's so much NFL, and you do not have to bet on all of them. Protect that bankroll. That is really, really hard earned money that you worked for. And, we're here to help you out with these bets and try and point you in the right direction. But no, do not bet all of these bets that we go over. These are trying to help you with your own bets. And if you do want our official bets, you want to know exactly what we're playing, what's our best of the best, those are on WagerTalk. I have a 5% play in the NFL. Andrew has a 5% in the CFL. Those are our two best bets for the weekend right there. They're right there. You exactly what we're betting. So great information, great conversation. Keep it coming. If you have any more questions, please leave them in the comments. I often tell people sometimes the bankroll management is more important than the picks. Trying to manage that bankroll. So, all right, guys, let's get into the game. So, Andrew, real quick, tell us. I spoiled your big surprise. You got a 5% in the CFL, which you've been money on. So, tell us about that play, and then let's get right into it. You got the big game, the Dallas and San Francisco. Let's break down some games. Tell us about that CFL play.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Andy. It goes this weekend. The playoffs are approaching in the CFL, so figuring out where everyone's going to stand as far as the standings are concerned and matchups for playoffs. So I think I found a spot I really do like. 8-2 on the year with 5% CFL plays. Also have a NFL sides pack and an NFL props pack going for this weekend. Of course, you can always get those 3-day passes and get it all in one package. Andy, this is a really good game, an exciting game, and I'm looking forward to watching it. However, look, Cowboys-Niners, the way I look at this one overall is that got a relatively high total. I don't think either of these teams have played a defense like each other. I mean, they've really been kind of sliding by. I'm taking another shot here with Dak Prescott under 240.5 passing yards. He's gone over this in 3 or 4. He's definitely been kind of showing me up so far. But when we look at the teams they've played, Giants, Jets, Cardinals, I mean, to me, when I look at this, I'm just not really buying the fact that he's going to be able to do the exact same stuff he's been doing against a defense like the Niners. And taking a look really at the time of possession that the Niners hold onto the ball, the run game that they have, I don't think the Cowboys will have the ball enough for him to be able to make all those big plays. So I'm going to look at the under 240 for Dak Prescott. I've mentioned this one every single week. I was super happy you gave me the Cowboys one again because you told me if I find one I like and it's working every week, why not keep going to it? Aubrey over 1.5 field goals is plus 114. He's 13 for 13 on kicks ever since he missed in the very first game. We're getting a plus 114 price on this. And Andy, I got to stress this to everybody. And this is a play on betting for everybody else out there. Good teams still kick field goals. I feel like a lot of people bet field goal props on bad teams thinking they'll just get stopped on third and have to kick. Good teams that put up good amount of points still kick field goals, and despite all the talent on this team, he's continuously hitting big kicks, and they're going to him in key opportunities, and we're getting a plus price on that. And I want to look at a Brandon Ayuk touchdown prop here. It's plus 145. Brock Purdy loves him, but he loves going to him in big moments. All 17 of Brandon Ayuk catches have resulted in either first downs or touchdowns. That's pretty impressive, Andy. This guy is not catching any pass that isn't worth anything, but he doesn't have that many touchdowns. He had 2 in the very first game of the season, and he hasn't found the end zone since then. I think this is a big key matchup. This is a game they will need him, and maybe he could, find a hole in the secondary and break off for a big play. So at plus 145, I thought I would slide in a touchdown prop, but 3 plays I really do like. And again, I am betting and releasing that over 1.5 field goal prop. That price is too good to pass up on, and I've mentioned it too many times now for me to not make that a client play.
I love the story of Aubrey, and I think it's brilliant what Dallas did. If you don't know the story, they basically found a guy with a big leg, taught him how to kick field goals, and then they put him, I think it was in the USFL. They put him in there for a season and got him reps. And so instead of just going this route of we'll just draft a kicker or something, they were like, who's a guy with a big, gigantic leg who can kick the ball a mile? And then we'll teach him. And he's Andrew, it's a great play. He is absolutely, he's an incredible kicker, man. That guy, if he gets the right conditions and the right setup, that guy could absolutely blast a 65 plus yard field goal. We always talk about Brock Purdy, 1.5 touchdowns. I don't know, Andrew, is the shine off of this one? Do we get as much juice out of the squeeze? Is that the same? What are we doing with Brock Purdy? Is it a stay away?
I think it's a stay away because, Andy, overall, I like the under, man. And with me liking the under, I know it's a high total overall, but I think that this is going to be a much lower scoring game than people think. Like I said, I think we're seeing 2 defenses that either team haven't faced a team with that capability on that side of the ball. And this could be a game where they run the ball heavily. And I know that's why the over 1.5 passing touchdowns for Brock Purdy stayed at a good number and a generous number for a while. But at this moment, I'm going to stay off. So unless you end up taking it, I'm hoping on Monday I come in here and every touchdown was a rushing touchdown for them.
Yeah, I won't be playing that one. So, all right, I'm going to break down Philadelphia and the Los Angeles Rams. And I got to tell you, I think the numbers on the props on the Philly side are pretty dialed in. So I look over to the Rams and I come to 2 props on the same guy. The first one is Matthew Stafford over 277.5 passing. I went over this on Bet On It. I think you could play the alt line at 300 plus yards at plus money. He's thrown for 319, 269, 307, and 334. This guy's thrown for 300 yards plus in 3 out of 4 games. And the Eagles are struggling with their secondary. They give up 279 yards passing a game. Eagles only allow 46 yards rushing, so I don't expect the Rams to have a lot of success on the ground. And I read an article talking about the Eagles secondary, saying that they're really struggling since they lost Maddox in week 2. They've been struggling with their starting lineup and who to put where. They brought in a guy and they put him on the practice squad to try and get him into game shape and to try and teach him the defense because they said that, quote, it's going to be a work in progress throughout the season. I think the opposing quarterback to the Eagles, their passing props, is going to be a really solid bet. I like Stafford over 277.5 passing. And here's the weirdest one, Andrew. Of all people in the NFL, Matthew Stafford has gone over his rushing total in every game. Not a running back, Matthew Stafford. They keep putting these numbers out at like 5.5, and he'll run one time for 7 yards. So listen, if you're into Matthew Stafford rushing props, there you go. But I really do like the Matthew Stafford over 277.5 passing. I really didn't find much value in any of the Philly lines. I think the DeAndre Swift line is good. I guess if you're really big into the anytime touchdown plays, you just kind of stick to Jalen Hurts and play him every week with the brotherly shove, which is a fantastic name for that play, by the way. But Matthew Stafford passing is the best one I came up with for the Eagles and the Rams. Andrew, let's take a look at Jacksonville and Buffalo. Second straight London game for Jacksonville. A lot of big names in this one. What did you find prop-wise for the Jaguars and the Bills?
That should be a great game, Andy, and looking forward to seeing how advantageous it is for the Jags, the fact that they're already there and they've been there for a week. We'll see how that works as far as the travel spot there. How about Travis Etienne over 63.5 rushing yards here? Here's the deal. You can either look at a guy that had a big workload and didn't put up big numbers and say that was a failure, or you can look at a guy that had a big workload and say if he gets that workload again, he's going over his number. And he had 20 carries last week for 55 yards. But Buffalo's rush defense has not been good. Seventh worst in the league, actually, giving up 143 yards on the ground to the Dolphins last week on just 19 attempts. So, I mean, 20 carries last week for Etienne on just 55 yards. I feel like if he even gets roughly close to the same amount of productivity and the same amount of opportunities, I feel like he will go over his number. I feel like it's important for everybody to keep the ball out of Josh Allen's hand. You know, running game is really important right now for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and especially in this game, I think they're not going to want to try and play quick. Establishing the run game early, I think, is huge for them. Andy, somebody that I haven't really mentioned, and we talk about at the beginning of the show, plays kind of missing your card. How about Gabe Davis? You know, he's definitely stringing it together a little bit here for the Buffalo Bills. I talked at the start of the year about certain teams, and I classified the Bills in this category as well, that the target share and the distribution can sometimes be just so dominant on one player. And I know Stephon Diggs is such a good player, but you can't make it so predictable every single play you're going to go to them. So I like Gabe Davis, but I like his over 19 and a half longest reception. He has a 20-yard catch in 4 straight games. When he's targeted deep. He's not getting a short pass. He's not getting a dump off. He's not a safety blanket. He's a guy out there to make big plays. So what's interesting about him is even looking at games when he has a good game, his target number isn't even that high, and his catch number isn't even that high. It's usually 2, 3, maybe on a rare day 4. But when he does catch the ball, he's catching a big one. So those are 2 plays that I really do like for this game over in London, Andy. And two games. It's a game that I'm certainly excited about.
Nothing better than waking up, watching a London game, and cashing a ticket. That's such a great feeling to start out the day with a win. I'm going to take a look at the Houston Texans at the Atlanta. And here's the stat of the game, Andrew. This is going to blow people's minds. Jonnu Smith and Kyle Pitts have played in 3 games together. In those 3 games, Kyle Pitts has 9 catches for 77 yards. Jonnu Smith has 15 catches for 179 yards. The prop numbers, Kyle Pitts is at 28.5 receiving. Jonnu Smith is at 30.5. The books have put Jonnu Smith with more yards than Kyle Pitts, and I gotta say I agree 100% with him. I don't know what is going on with Kyle Pitts, if it's just not working, if he's a bust, if there's some friction, if the team doesn't like him, I don't know. But right now, the best tight end on this Falcons team is Jonnu Smith. It's not Kyle Pitts. So, bummer for people that drafted Kyle Pitts in fantasy. It's just a strange thing going on in Atlanta. So, yeah, I like Jonnu Smith over 30.5 yards. So we hit CJ Stroud over his passing last week. That was our 5% play. I'm actually going to stay away from CJ Stroud. Love the talent. I don't think this is a great matchup. The Falcons have the 3rd best pass defense, 188 yards allowed per game. So while I think Stroud's going to have success, I don't think he's going to have the numbers that he put up last week. And I'll go to a team total here, Andrew. This Texans team total at 19.5, I'm stunned that it's not 21.5. They've put up over 30 points the last 2 games. CJ Stroud was sacked 11 times in the first 2 weeks. No sacks allowed the last 2 weeks. And this Falcons team, I think, is in trouble. I think teams have figured out stack the box and make Desmond Ridder throw. And it's just not working. The last 2 weeks, the Falcons have lost the time of possession. For a team that prides itself on running, that's a bad sign for them. I like this Houston team. I love the number at 19.5. I thought it would be over 21. So I like the team total in this one. But yeah, just be careful on CJ Stroud. I know we had success with him last week, but we got to pick our spots with these guys. This is not the week I think he's going to fly over like he did last week. So Andrew, Carolina at Detroit. What do you got for this game?
So Andy, before I say this, I don't want you to think I'm copying a play that I think you mentioned on WagerTalk today, but I have a similar play that you had already talked about, and that is the Miles Sanders under 40.5 yards. A good play is a good play. Lions number 1 against the run, allowing just 60 yards per game on the ground. Sanders averages 39.5 point yards, rushing yards per game. His number's at 40. But here's some people might say, well, that's just only 1 yard off. But now you have to play a team that you're probably going to be down again. You're going to be chasing the lead, and you're going to have to stretch the field out with big throws. You don't have time for this minimal production that Sanders is giving you. So although this number is one off, it's certainly been adjusted. There's no denying it, but I don't think it's a buy low spot at all with Miles Sanders. I don't think he'll get the ball quite a bit at all. And looking at some of the teams that have gone up against this Lions team and the way they've been shut down on the ground, this is not a game that Miles Sanders gets going against. And I don't think they go to him much in the second half. I mean, I think he needs to get mostly there in the first half, because once they're down, which I think they're going to continue to struggle, this Carolina team has not looked good. They're not going to look to run the ball, especially for a guy that's averaging like 2 yards per carry, if that. He's just not someone that's been very productive. Speaking of games that, when you look at a game that's an absolute blowout or even like a 10-point game, you don't really expect the quarterback to be throwing the ball a ton in the second half. And now I understand that sometimes myself, I've said you have to get to that blowout by doing something. So although the quarterback might stop throwing it in the second half, well, still they must have got that blowout somehow. I think there's a great running back room in Detroit. Special teams is great. Field goal kicking. I like Jared Goff under 242.5 passing yards. You take a look at really what he's done, and really he hasn't needed to make big plays. He's been a game manager. His running backs have done the job for him, and they've kind of just coasted through that. And their defense, I think, has been underrated this season so far. But having said that about his under on his passing yards, I like the over on his TDs. Speaking of the running back room and things like that, it's gone over in 8 of his last 9 games. And the good news is about this, I think it's a little bit of a comparable situation, actually, to the San Francisco 49ers situation. And don't put me on record saying I'm comparing the Lions to the Niners. But when you've got a guy like Jared Goff that can certainly throw the ball, there are a handful of weapons, in the receiving position, but you've got 2 guys that can run the ball in. And I feel like that's what's kept this price at minus 130 for over 1.5. I think it's something that we can't really stay away from. So under on passing yards for Goff, over on his passing touchdowns, and under on Miles Sanders rushing yards. I really think Miles Sanders has to get this like early. He has to have like a 10-yard, 15-yard run in order to cash this ticket, I think. And I don't think he's going to go over at all.
Yeah, I'm with you completely. And yeah, good play is a good play. I mean, we talk about this. It's okay to mention the same play over and over and over. I mean, anybody that watched us on Puck Time, Tyler Toffoli has is a legend for us. So you just keep playing those plays if they're good. So I am going to talk about my Indianapolis Colts playing the Tennessee Titans. Guys, I got a 5% NFL play that is up. Started off perfect, 4-0 this year, and that is now 25-9. The last 2 seasons on NFL 5% plays. They are just spectacular and a great way to build the bankroll. So we're looking for 5 in a row. For this game, Andrew, I got to eliminate the Colts. I can't fire away on any Colts. I have no idea what this offense is going to do. It's Jonathan Taylor. Like I don't know what the mindset is. And I follow the team here, and I'm telling you, locally, nobody knows what is going on. So when we have something, when we have a team that we don't know exactly what's going on, it's easy to just stay away from them, because on the other side of the ball, there is a play that sticks out. I'm stunned at how low this passing total is on Ryan Tannehill. His passing total is 206.5 passing. I love the over. Andrew, I keep saying keep fading this Colts secondary. So Tannehill has gone under against the 2 best defenses he's faced, the Saints and the Browns. Those are 2 great defenses. He's easily gone over this total against the 2 bad pass defenses he's faced, the Bengals and the Chargers. And the Colts give up 287 yards a game passing. So if the Colts give up 287 and I only need Ryan Tannehill to get over 206, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to be taking that one. Traditionally, Derrick Henry has owned the Colts. I don't think this is the same Derrick Henry that we've seen in years past. So I think Tannehill gets it done through the air. This is a Colts secondary that's just too easy to exploit. So if I'm looking for something in this game, it's for the Tennessee Titans to have success throwing at the ball. All right, Andrew, New York Giants and the Miami Dolphins. Is this like 95% of survivor pools have the Dolphins as the pick this week. So my guess is we're looking at some pretty tasty Miami Dolphin props. What do you like in this game?
I'm scared to see social media for this game. We're going to see so many stupid same game parlays with like 10 legs on them that lose by like 4 of them not making it. I mean, this is one of those games that I think if we're ever to tell somebody to be careful, I think this is one of those games, Andy, because everyone sees a lopsided game, a game that should be a complete blowout and thinks that's the game you load up on props. But there's so many variables when it comes down to it. So here's 2 that I like. And the first one is I like Waddle over 61.5 receiving yards. Everybody talks about Tyreek, but this number, I mean, for a guy averaging 70 yards per game this season, putting up some monstrous numbers, his yards after catch is unbelievable, always able to make plays. Looking at the comparisons of some other guys that have recently faced the Giants and gone over this number, Lamb, Wilson, Samuel, and most recently Tyler Lockett. I feel like those are all player comparables here to a guy like Waddle. And this matchup against the Giants secondary looks incredibly weak. I mean, everyone wants to talk about, I lost a big play on the Giants the other night. Everyone wants to talk about Danny Dimes, and it certainly wasn't his game. The offense wasn't great. The offensive line was horrible. But the defense didn't really give them a chance. I don't really think the offense had to do much for Seattle, but I still think that they were just able to do the most minimal plays. The tackling was off. The secondary looked defeated. They looked gassed. And that's one interesting thing about when you play a team like the Giants. If your offense is going 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, the defense is getting exhausted. And when you look at how many athletic receivers there are on the Dolphins, it's going to be bad. Like, I don't think that what a turnaround for this Giants team. I really like this number, 61.5 for Waddle for a guy averaging 70 yards per game. Now, Andy, I know we got a lot of different games, but I want to get your thoughts on this one here. Darren Waller, because when I look at him and his props here, he has a 10.2 yard per catch on 15 catches here. He's expected to be more involved in the game. I mean, who else is going to be getting thrown to? Because when you look at Giants receivers, I want to bet the under on pretty much everybody but him. But when I look at some of his numbers for receptions, for longest reception, for receiving yards, it seems to me if there's ever a buy low situation in a game like this against a Miami team that puts up 30 points in their sleep, they're going to have to throw the ball. And I haven't really played too much on Darren Waller this year, but I feel like if there was ever a time for me to jump in on over for this Giants team, it has to be on Waller. So I'm curious, like, do you think it's one of those teams and players that you say, why hope for a guy to turn things around and why hope for a quarterback like Daniel Jones to find him? Or do you think that this could be a buy low spot? Because everyone's loading up on Dolphins props, but the Giants still have to do something, right?
Yeah, maybe they might want to do something. I mean, Darren Waller, he could be a buy low. He could also be a stay low. I think he's been overrated. I think he's been overrated. I'm not really sure what he adds to this offense. He hasn't done much. He's constantly hurt. I'm not a Darren Waller guy. I haven't really been a Darren Waller guy. I didn't understand all the hoopla when he signed with the Giants. I mean, if I'm looking at, it was completely unwarranted. I think Wan'Dale Robinson could be the guy that emerges. He seems to be getting more snaps, more catches. And I guess the thing with that passing game, I don't know how you could take an over on the passing game. Daniel Jones was getting smoked. He hardly had any time to throw. So I think it's a unit, the New York Giants offense, that I just want to stay away from. So, I mean, maybe I'm biased because I've just never been a Darren Waller guy, but I could never see myself taking an over on Darren Waller. That's just me. So,
well, in the NFL right now for sides, I feel like it's a good buy low spot on certain teams or sell high week. I always peg week 5 as kind of the time you look at which teams have overachieved and which teams have underachieved. So as far as props, I'm trying to do the same thing, but you also don't want to try and reinvent the wheel. I like what you said there. Stay low. It's like
he could stay low. He could stay low. So, this next game is actually pretty quick here. I've got New Orleans and the Patriots. I think the Saints props are really, really hard. Carr played hurt. I'm averaged 3.4 yards of completion. I mean, that's a handoff. I mean, Kamara had, what do you have, 14 targets or something? He could not stretch the field. There was just tons of dump offs. So I don't know what to do with the Saints here. I don't like these props with quarterbacks we have no idea what's going on, how hurt he is. Do we see Jameis? So I'm staying away from the Saints. And also for the Patriots, I don't know what this Patriots defense is going to look like. My gosh, the injuries to Christian Gonzalez and Matthew Judon. Gosh, that's so frustrating. I mean, Gonzalez was really, really fun to watch. It was like, oh man, what a steal in the draft, and now he's out for the year. So the only one I'm looking at is Mac Jones under 22.5 completions, 15 against the Jets, 12 against Dallas before he got benched. Saints only allow 21 completions per game. Only Baker Mayfield has gone over this total, and Baker's surprisingly and having a pretty good season. And I mean, we saw Mac get benched in a blowout. There is always the chance he doesn't make it through the whole game. So that's the only thing I could really come to. But I gotta say, this game's pretty tough for props. I won't have anything official in it. Baltimore at Pittsburgh. Andrew, grudge match, two rivals. What do you like props wise in this game?
I find myself betting on guys that I've made fun of lately, which I feel like I don't deserve to make money off some of these players if I've been mean to them in the past. And one of those players I've kind of had it out for is Najee Harris. I think he's the slowest running back in the league. I think that, I don't know, I'd like to challenge this guy to a race because when he gets the ball, it's like he's running in slow motion, but he's so big and strong that he's able to beat some tackles. And I'm now seeing 48.5 as his rushing yard number. I like that quite a bit. This Ravens team, they've dealt with injuries in their secondary over the years. And sure, some teams are able to expose them, but I feel like this is going to be an opportunity where the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to try and keep the ball on the ground as well. We know they've dealt with injuries with the quarterback position as well. Looks like Kenny Pickett will be good to go. But I really like Najee Harris props. I'm just trying to narrow it down if I want to look at attempts or if I want to look at yards. But just looking at this number at 48.5, I think it's pretty low. And I think that for a guy that really got the ball quite a bit last week, and it was tough for them. I mean, you look at the loss they were handed, and he still got that many yards. And so to me, in a game I feel that definitely will be closer than the game that they had last week against the Texans, I think he should get the ball, 13, 14, 15 times. If he does do that, I think he will be able to kind of expose this Ravens team's ground defense and get the job done. So Najee Harris is a guy I'm looking at. Like I said, I did see that Kenny Pickett will be good to go. So I wanted to mention two with him that I think are pretty interesting. He's gone under on interception, so obviously has not thrown an interception in 9 of his last 11 games, and he's hit the under in his completions prop. You guys always hear me talking about over in completion prop. He's hit the under on his completion prop in 5 straight games. So I find that one pretty interesting. This is a guy that relies on a good defense, relies on a two-man running back duo, and realistically has not had to throw the ball a ton since he's really been the guy with this team, and they've made him very comfortable behind center. And another quarterback prop here, Lamar Jackson under on passing touchdowns. Why pass the ball when you can run it and do it yourself? And lately, that's been the story of Lamar Jackson, Andy. If he sees a hole, he's going for the touchdown all by himself, under 1.5 touchdowns for Lamar Jackson.
We might have to track the Najee Harris and AJ Dillon 40-yard like dash. Fun with those guys. Those two tops of the list as far as oh man, slow and plodding and barely getting to the line of scrimmage.
Those two guys are why my girlfriend hates watching football, because the play starts, they snap the ball, and it's a 1-yard run. Those are the reasons why some people can't get into football.
So funny. Oh, the AJ Dillon tracker on Monday. I cannot wait for that one. Cincinnati at Arizona. This one is tough because I don't know what to do with Joe Burrow. I mean, you're certainly not betting overs. I don't think so. But this entire Bengals offense is in disarray. I don't think they're as bad as they looked last week, but maybe they are. If Joe Burrow keeps getting hit and sacked like that, I mean, he's got to be worried about more than a calf. So I think this team really depends on what's going to happen with Cincinnati. So I'm just going to fade the entire Cincinnati Bengals, and I'm going to take their team total over or under 23.5. In their 2 road games this season, they've scored 6 points. Yikes. Cardinals, their defense isn't amazing, but they held the Cowboys and the Commanders to 16 points each. So if you're looking at a way to just fade the Bengals, if you think that they're in trouble, maybe just look at the team total under. For the Cardinals, I thought the numbers were pretty accurate. Michael Wilson has my interest, but I think the books got out in front of him. He had a great game last week, but they put it at 37.5 yards. I was hoping they would not give us a number over 30, but the books did a good job saying, no, you're not gonna let Michael Wilson catch us. So I think the individual player props in this game are a little bit tough because the Bengals are, completely in disarray. And if T. Higgins is out, you're looking at Tyler Boyd over receptions, but they don't have the lines out for that. So that's probably a Sunday morning type of prop that you're looking at is Tyler Boyd to fill in for T. Higgins, depending on what Higgins' situation is. Andrew, New York Jets at the Denver Broncos. Man, interesting game. A lot of interesting props here. What do you like in this one? You've got a horrific defense and a decent quarterback, and you got a horrific quarterback and a decent defense. What do you like in the Jets and the Broncos?
Yeah, when we talk about how many of these we're actually betting ourselves, this probably isn't a game I'm going to be all over by any means. I wanted to say real quick about the Bengals. If you're someone that makes all kinds of bets off quotes, whether it's prop sides or totals, this is a game that you should completely just stay off of. Like Joe Burrow being like, this is our game of the year. Like, this is a game we have to win. This is a game we need to have a good performance in. I think anybody could say that going into any game. Like those quotes always make me laugh. I don't know. I think that there's different ways to say there are certain things, but that's why people that read so much into quotes as handicappers crack me up a little bit, just because you can't let what a quarterback says should happen deceive what you think will happen. And frankly, they're not looking very good. So I like that play you're on there, Andy. Something else I do like there. I like Alan Lazard to continue going over his number. I mentioned this, I think, in the week 1 game with the Jets. I think he just barely scraped by. And since then, they have not adjusted his number whatsoever. He got 3 receptions, but 61 yards. This is a guy last week against Kansas City. This is a guy that you don't have to worry about getting high numbers of targets or catches. You give him 2 or 3 balls, he's potentially going to go over his number, and they're still sending it in the mid 30s. Something I want to continue to look at here. And I think that if the Jets were playing most other teams last week besides the Chiefs, they come out victorious. I thought Zach Wilson looked respectable. He was able to find his targets, and they had a smart game plan going into it. So I am looking at that. Breece Hall, they just continue to, no matter who it is, if it's Dalvin Cook, if it's Hall, they don't like the run game. And I think a lot of it obviously could be, for them being blown out in lots of games and not being able to run the ball. But last week was relatively close. They were always within striking distance. This Jets team does not like going towards the run game, even though they have a quarterback in Wilson that everyone likes to laugh at. I'm looking at under on rushing for the New York Jets. And speaking of rushing, I want to look at the over for the guy that loves to cook, Russell Wilson. I think that he's going to be a guy that's going to be able to run all over this Jets team. They've got a lot of pressure, a great pass rush, a good secondary. You mentioned the good defense. I feel like this is an opportunity where the second that Russ sees trouble, I think he will use his legs. We all know he isn't the same guy he used to be on his legs, but that number is a lot lower than it used to be set for him with Seattle as well. So I'll be looking at him. And how about Marvin Mims Jr.? He's someone that's been found quite a bit there for the Broncos. He's a little bit down the depth chart. We're getting lower numbers. And I think this is a game that you could see him kind of get involved and make 1 or 2 big plays. And lately, Andy, those are the kind of the players I've been targeting more, which might sound a bit risky, but I like looking at players that don't get as many catches, but when they do, they're for a lot longer versus the guys that, get 3, 4, 5 catches, but they're for like 40 yards. So I think he'll have a good game. But I'll tell you, I'm very curious to see what the deal is with the New York Jets and their running back room, because those guys aren't happy and it's not getting any better. Every single week, it seems like they're just not getting their touches. And I understand they're a team that it's not having much success. And if you're not really in games, you can't run the ball. But at the same time, I think you kind of have to keep defenses guessing, don't you think?
I mean, if there's ever a game to get right, well, and this is the dangerous part. If you can't get right against the Denver Broncos, you're in big trouble if they can't get that running game going. But maybe
Right.
this is the one that kind of, jump starts the rushing game. So, Andrew, we have one more game to break down. Remind everybody about your 5% play and tell everyone where we can find you at.
Yeah, short link is wt.buzz/am over at wagertalk.com, of course. I actually just put out a video or recorded a video for NHL opening night next Tuesday. I'm going to be doing all kinds of videos. Of course, Puck Time returns next week. We'll see Andy on there as well. But I've got a package up, 7-day pass in the NHL. Get the first 7 days of the NHL season for $49. And the first 25 people, they get 2 additional days. So 9 days of NHL plays for just $49. And of course, 5% CFL play going this weekend, 8-2 on 5% CFL plays this summer.
Music to my ears, Andrew. Low volume, high hit rate on the 5% plays. Perfect. It's perfect. I love hearing that. So I'm going to be breaking down the Chiefs and the Vikings, 2 props I actually really like in this game. Real quick, guys, if you haven't hit the like button, please do that. It really helps us out. Leave us a comment and tell us what your favorite prop is for this weekend. If it's something you heard in this show or if it's something that you like on your own, leave it in the comments section. We read all of them. Love hearing those. And also, guys, tons of gambling content on this channel. The individual game previews for the NFL and college games have been just a huge success, and they're great because they're only a couple minutes long. If you have interest in betting on a game, we probably have a video up there. And again, those are great videos to learn some stats that you didn't know about. Maybe it sways you in one direction if you were on the fence, or maybe it talks you off a play that might have saved you some money. But check all those out. I mean, every NFL game is up there, and we put these things up on Monday. So a lot of good stuff. So check all of those videos out. I have a 5% play that is up 4-0 in NFL. 5% plays for this season, 25-9 over the last 2 seasons. We are cooking. So go grab that. We've got UFC and Bellator plays that are up as well. But really, you should get involved in the NFL 5% plays. It's a fantastic way to build the bankroll. All right, Kansas City Chiefs, Minnesota Vikings. I have 2 props that I like. I really like what I'm seeing from Isaiah Pacheco, Andrew, and I love this total at 57.5. He's really grabbed the ball and run with it, pun intended there. Gone over in 3 straight games, and not many other running backs are getting touches, especially when the game is close. He has clearly earned 100% confidence from Mahomes and from Andy Reid. And here's a sneaky little stat here, Andrew. The Chiefs are the 9th best rushing offense in the league. I think everyone is still in the mode of, Mahomes throwing the ball all over the field. This is a top 10 rushing offense. And I love the way the Chiefs are building this team with a great defense and a good running game. The Panthers rushed for 83 yards against the Vikings last week. Panthers are not very good rushing. You talked about Miles Sanders and his struggles. So if the Panthers can get to 83, I really like Pacheco to get over this rushing total. And we'll go back to Kirk Cousins over his attempts. They're still not putting it over 40. If it's below 40 attempts, I think you're looking at it really hard. It's 39.5, 44, 44, and 50 attempts in the games that they lost, 19 attempts in the game that they won. So if they get down, he's going to be chucking it all over the field. And against the Chiefs, Zach Wilson threw it 39 times. Trevor Lawrence threw it 41 times. On average, Kirk Cousins throws it way more than those guys. So if the game script goes the way of the Chiefs, I think you're going to see a lot of Isaiah Pacheco. That's why I like his over. And I think you're going to see Kirk Cousins throwing the ball. That's why I like his over 39.5 attempts. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us for Prop It Up. Good luck on all your plays. Andrew and I will be back on Monday to look at the Monday Night Football game. We're also going to look at numbers that we hope to see for next week. Remember, guys, you do not have to go high volume. Do not overexpose yourself with too many units on the board with college and football. I know it's tempting, but just take it easy. We got to protect those bankrolls. Thanks to everybody. Good luck on all your bets, and we will see everyone Monday on Prop It Up.